Earth's Last Warning. Stop attacking or we stop acting courteous. Part 1. The sky over New Haven burned red. Not the soft red of sunset, but the angry, pulsing red of plasma fire and shattered shields. Smoke curled from the ruins of the colony's central dome, once a symbol of human hope on the edge of known space. Now it was just rubble, twisted metal, and silence where children's laughter used to be. The Virex strike force had come without warning, without reason, and without mercy. They had hit the colony's power grid first, then the comms array, then the residential sectors. In less than 20 minutes, 2,000 lives were gone. On Earth, thousands of light years away, the news arrived in a cold, sterile briefing room beneath Geneva. President Daniel Carter sat at the head of a long table, his hands folded, his face unreadable. Around him sat the leaders of the United Earth Defense Council, generals, scientists, diplomats, all watching the same feed on the wall screen. The footage showed a Virex cruiser hovering over New Haven's remains, its angular hull gleaming under the system's pale sun. No rescue ships, no cleanup crews, just observation, as if they were studying an experiment. This was the third time in 18 months. The first attack had been on EOS Station, minimal casualties, mostly damage to cargo bays. Earth had sent a formal protest through the Galactic Concord. The second had been on Viridia Outpost, 63 dead, including medics and engineers. Humanity had demanded reparations and a public apology. The Virex had ignored both. Now New Haven, 2,000 souls. No warning, no reason given. Carter finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. How many more times do we say please before they understand we mean stop? General Lisa Monroe shifted in her seat. She was in her late 40s with sharp eyes and a reputation for saying exactly what she thought. Mr. President, we've played by their rules since first contact. We've followed every protocol, filed every report, sat through every useless hearing. They see it as weakness. They see it as courtesy, said Dr. Owen Hayes, the lead scientist from the Mars Orbital Research Division. He was younger than most in the room, with messy brown hair and a habit of tapping his pen when nervous. And maybe it was. But courtesy only works when both sides respect it. Carter looked at Monroe. What's our real status? Not the public reports. The truth. Monroe leaned forward. We're ready. The Veil network is operational. We've tested it in deep space. Virex sensors can't detect our ships once the field's up. Their long-range scanners see nothing but empty space. Even their AI-driven prediction models can't track us. We've been holding back because we didn't want to escalate. But if they think we're harmless, maybe it's time they learn otherwise. There was a long pause. Outside, rain began to fall against the reinforced windows. Inside, the air felt heavy. Carter stood. He walked to the screen and stared at the image of the Virex cruiser. They keep attacking because they believe we won't fight back. Because every time they hurt us, we send a message asking nicely for them to stop. Well, New Haven wasn't a request. It was a massacre. He turned back to the room. We're going to send one more message. One final warning. But this time it won't be a plea. It'll be a promise. Monroe nodded slowly. Operation Polite Ultimatum. Yes, Carter said. We broadcast it galaxy-wide. Every channel, every language, every relay station we control. We say exactly this. Stop attacking or we stop acting courteous. Hayes frowned. Will they understand what that means? They don't have to understand, Monroe said. They just have to believe we mean it. The decision was made within the hour. Technicians across Earth, Luna, and Mars began preparing the transmission. It would go out on all frequencies, military, civilian, diplomatic, even the emergency bands used by freighters and deep space miners. The message would be short, clear, and repeated every 6 hours for 3 days. No music, no symbols, just a human voice, calm and firm, speaking in over 200 languages. Back in Geneva, Carter returned to his office. He stared at a small photo on his desk. His daughter, smiling in front of the old New York Botanical Garden, taken just before she left for medical school on Titan. She had believed in the dream of peaceful coexistence. So did he. But dreams don't protect people when warships show up unannounced. That evening, as Earth rotated into night, the first broadcast launched into the void. It traveled faster than light, riding the quantum entanglement network that linked human settlements across the stars. Within minutes, it reached listening posts near Alpha Centauri, then Proxima, then the outer colonies. Within hours, alien species across the galaxy heard it, some curious, some amused, most skeptical. The Virex High Command received the message during their evening council session. Overseer Krelvo listened to the human words translated into his native tongue. He let out a low, clicking laugh. "They threaten us with bad manners?" he said to his advisors. "Let them be rude. We will crush them before they learn how to grow claws." His words were recorded and later leaked to human intelligence. When Monroe heard them, she didn't smile. She simply turned to her aide and said, "Log it. Date and time. We'll remind them of that quote when the time comes." On New Haven, rescue teams finally arrived, human ships, moving slowly through the debris. They found survivors in the lower levels, huddled in emergency shelters. Among them was a young boy no older than 8, clutching a scorched toy rover. He looked up at the medic and whispered, "Are they coming back?" The medic, a woman named Carla Briggs, knelt beside him. She didn't lie. "Not if we can help it," she said softly. Back on Earth, the world waited. Markets dipped slightly. Schools held extra drills. Families checked their emergency kits. But life went on. People still went to work, still kissed their loved ones goodbye, still hoped for peace. Yet something had shifted. The patience that had defined humanity's place in the galaxy, the quiet willingness to endure, to forgive, to ask again and again for decency, had reached its limit. The message was sent. The warning was clear, and for the first time in decades, Earth was not asking for peace. It was preparing for something else. The Virex did not take the message seriously. In their grand council chamber on the homeworld of Zeros, Overseer Krelvo replayed the human transmission for his inner circle. He laughed again, louder this time, his segmented jaw clicking with amusement. "They speak of courtesy like it is a weapon," he said. "Let them stop acting polite. What will they do? Frown at us? Refuse to hold the door?" His advisors chuckled, their armored hides shimmering under the chamber's violet lights. To them, humans were soft creatures, too kind, too slow to anger, too bound by strange rules about life and death. They had watched humanity absorb blow after blow without striking back. They assumed this warning was just more noise. On Earth, no one expected the Virex to listen. But that was not the point. The point was to make sure the rest of the galaxy heard, and they did. Within days, the message spread through trade lanes, diplomatic outposts, and smuggler networks. Species that had once dismissed humans as naive idealists began to wonder. The Kethari, known for their brutal honor duels, sent quiet inquiries to Earth's embassy. The gentle Luminae, who communicated through light patterns, broadcast a message of solidarity. Even the neutral Zarn collective paused their usual mockery and asked, "What will you do if they strike again?" No one knew for sure, not even most humans. The military kept its plans locked behind layers of encryption and silence. But in the Mars orbital shipyards, work moved faster than ever. Dr. Owen Hayes stood on a gantry overlooking Bay 7, where the final phase of the Veil network was being installed on the EFS Resolute. The system looked like nothing special, just a series of silver rings wrapped around the ship's hull, humming faintly. But inside those rings, quantum fields bent light, energy, and sensor waves around the vessel like water around a stone. To enemy scanners, the ship simply wasn't there. Hayes wiped sweat from his brow. "Test run complete?" he asked a technician nearby. "Clean sweep," the man replied. "Virex long-range simulators couldn't spot us even when we passed within 5,000 kilometers. Hayes nodded. It wasn't magic. It was physics, patience, and years of quiet research while the galaxy assumed humans were only good at farming, music, and medicine. They never expected Earth to weaponize kindness into strategy, or silence into strength. Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Captain Maya Ruiz ran drills with her crew. She was in her early 30s, with dark eyes and a calm voice that never rose, even in emergencies. Her crew respected her not because she shouted, but because she listened. Today's exercise wasn't about defense. It was about precision. They practiced disabling enemy comms, jamming targeting systems, and locking down weapons without firing a single shot. "We're not here to kill," Ruiz told them during the debrief. "We're here to make them think twice. And if they don't, then we make them think never again." Back on Earth, life seemed normal. Children played in parks. Trains ran on time. Farmers harvested crops under open skies. But beneath the surface, a change had taken root. People spoke less about hope and more about readiness. Volunteers signed up for civil defense. Engineers redesigned power grids to be harder to knock out. Even schools added lessons on signal encryption and emergency protocols. It wasn't fear, it was focus. Humanity had spent generations believing peace was enough. Now they understood that peace needed teeth. President Carter visited a memorial service for the New Haven victims. He stood quietly at the back, hat in hand, as names were read aloud. Afterward, a woman approached him, Carla Briggs, the medic who had found the boy in the ruins. She didn't ask for promises. She just said, "Make sure they remember what happened here." Carter nodded. He already had. In deep space near the Helios belt, a human freighter convoy moved slowly toward a mining outpost. The ships were old, painted with faded logos, carrying supplies and spare parts, unarmed, defenseless, or so it seemed. Hidden among them, cloaked by the Veil network, the Resolute drifted like a shadow. Ruiz watched the scanners, her fingers resting lightly on the console. She knew the Virex liked to pick on soft targets, and today they might just take the bait. Sure enough, 3 Virex raiders dropped out of warp an hour later. Sleek, black, and bristling with weapons, they moved in fast, broadcasting no warnings. Standard procedure for them: scare, loot, destroy. But as they closed in, something strange happened. Their targeting systems glitched. Their comms filled with static. One by one, their engines sputtered and died. The raiders floated helplessly, confused, scanning for the source of the interference. From the Resolute, Ruiz gave a single order. Deploy counterpulse, non-lethal, full disable. A silent wave of energy rolled out from the hidden ship. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply told every Virex system to shut down safely, cleanly, completely. Within seconds, the raiders were dark, drifting hulks. No one was hurt. No shots were fired. But the message was clear. Ruiz opened a channel, not to the Virex but to the freighter captains. All clear. Continue your route. We'll escort you the rest of the way. The freighters moved on, shaken but safe. The Virex ships remained powerless until their own rescue arrived hours later. When the news reached Zyros, Krelvo was furious. "Impossible," he growled. "Human tech is primitive. They cannot hide from us," but the evidence was undeniable. And for the first time, doubt crept into the Virex ranks. On Earth, no one celebrated. There were no parades, no victory speeches. Instead, engineers worked through the night to refine the Veil network. Pilots trained harder. Diplomats prepared statements in case the galaxy asked questions. Humanity wasn't gloating. They were preparing, because they knew this was only the beginning. The Virex would not accept humiliation. They would come back with more ships, more anger, and no mercy. And when they did, Earth would be ready. Not with rage, not with cruelty, but with a calm, quiet strength that had been building for decades, hidden beneath smiles and handshakes and open doors. The galaxy had mistaken kindness for weakness. Now slowly it was learning the truth. Courtesy was not the absence of power. It was the choice not to use it until that choice was taken away. And once it was gone, it would not return easily. The Virex raiders struck again 3 weeks later. This time it was a freighter convoy near the Helios belt. 6 civilian ships carrying food, medicine, and replacement parts for the outer colonies. The Virex came fast and silent, just as before, expecting easy prey. They did not expect what happened next. One moment their sensors showed empty space. The next, every system on all 3 raiders went dark. No explosions. No laser fire. Just sudden total silence. Their engines stopped. Their weapons locked. Their comms filled with static. The Virex crews scrambled, shouting in confusion, but there was nothing they could do. They floated helplessly as human ships, ships they could not see, moved around them like ghosts. From the bridge of the EFS Resolute, Captain Maya Ruiz watched the raiders drift. She gave no orders to fire. No threats. No warnings. She simply activated the counterpulse again, a clean, non-lethal surge that shut down enemy tech without harming the crews. Then she opened a channel, not to the Virex, but to the freighter captains. "You're safe now. Keep moving. We'll stay with you until you reach port." The freighters continued on, shaken but unharmed. The Virex ships remained stranded, powerless, until their own rescue arrived hours later. When the news reached the Virex High Command, Overseer Krelvo smashed his command console with his fist. "This is not possible," he snarled. "Humans do not have this power." But the proof was undeniable. And worse, it was spreading. Within days, the story reached every corner of known space. Species that had once laughed at humanity's gentle ways now spoke in hushed tones. The Cavalry sent a formal request to observe human defense drills. The Lumini broadcast a pulse of golden light, a sign of deep respect. Even the Zarn, who rarely took sides, quietly rerouted their trade ships to fly under human escort. On Earth, there was no celebration. No grand announcements. President Daniel Carter met with General Lisa Monroe in his office, the morning sun casting long shadows across the floor. "They'll come back harder," he said. "They already are," Monroe replied. "Scouts report Virex fleet movements near the Sol border. They're testing us. Let them test," Carter said. "But make sure they learn the lesson." Meanwhile, humanity began reclaiming what had been lost. Not with speeches or treaties, but with action. On the colony world of Viridia, abandoned after the second Virex attack, a human fleet appeared without warning. The Virex garrison station there barely had time to react before their systems failed. Human engineers landed within the hour, repaired the water purifiers, restored power to the medical bay, and left food stores in the town square. By the time the Virex regained control of their gear, the humans were gone, and the colonists were safe. The same thing happened on Eos Station, on New Carthage, on 5 other outposts across the rim. Each time the pattern was the same: silent arrival, precise disablement, quick repair, quiet departure. No violence, no demands, just results. The galaxy watched, stunned. Humans were not just defending themselves, they were healing the wounds the Virex had made. Captain Ruiz led most of these missions. Her crew moved with quiet efficiency, never boasting, never lingering. After one operation on the ice moon of Theron, a young colonist asked her, "Why don't you just take the place back for good?" Ruiz looked out at the frozen plains, where solar panels were being reinstalled by human engineers. "Because we're not here to conquer," she said. "We're here to remind them that kindness doesn't mean surrender." Back on Mars, Dr. Owen Hayes worked non-stop to improve the Veil network. Each mission gave new data: how long the cloaks could last, how close they could get to enemy sensors, how to refine the counterpulse to avoid collateral damage. He barely slept. His hands were always stained with grease or coffee, his eyes tired but sharp. He knew the Virex would not stop. They would keep pushing until they either broke humanity or were broken themselves. On Earth, people noticed the change. News reports no longer showed images of ruined colonies with sad music. Instead, they showed engineers rebuilding, medics treating the wounded, children returning to schools under human protection. Hope was returning, but it was a different kind of hope. Not the fragile kind that begged for peace, but the steady kind that built it. Ambassador Lena Ford stood before the Galactic Concord on the neutral world of Syra Prime. She was calm, dressed in a simple gray suit, her voice clear and steady. "For years we asked for fairness," she said. "We filed reports. We appealed to your laws. We showed restraint even when our people died. You called us noble. You called us naive. Today we are neither. We are simply done waiting." She paused, letting the silence settle. "We were polite hosts. Now we're just hosts." The chamber was quiet. Even the Virex delegate, usually loud and aggressive, said nothing. He just stared at her, his claws twitching. That night, a message arrived at Earth Command. It was from a minor Virex commander, one who had lost his ship near Helios. He had not been harmed. His crew had been given water and medical checks before being left with enough power to call for help. In his message, he wrote only 2 words. "We see you." General Monroe showed the message to Carter. "They're starting to understand," she said. "Good," Carter replied. "Because the next time they attack, we won't just disable them. We'll make sure the whole galaxy watches." The warning had been given. The patience had run out. Humanity was no longer asking for respect. They were showing why they deserved it. And this time the galaxy was paying attention. Overseer Krelvo had had enough. The whispers in the Virex Council grew louder every day. Some of his own commanders questioned his judgment. Others spoke in private about seeking peace with Earth. That was unacceptable. To him, humanity's sudden strength was not real. It was trickery, luck, or temporary advantage. He would crush it with overwhelming force and restore the hegemony's honor. He ordered the full mobilization of the Virex Grand Fleet. Over 300 warships gathered at the edge of known space: cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and the massive command vessel Iron Maw. It was the largest force the hegemony had ever assembled. Their target was clear: Sol System. Earth itself. Krelvo would not stop at colonies or convoys. He would strike the heart of human civilization and end this nonsense once and for all. The fleet moved slowly at first, broadcasting its approach like a storm rolling in. They wanted Earth to see them coming. They wanted fear. They wanted surrender. But as they crossed the outer marker of human-controlled space, the line drawn near the Kuiper Belt, they found only silence. No warning hails. No defensive fleets scrambling to meet them. No frantic messages. Just empty space, Krelvo frowned. "Scan for cloaked vessels," he ordered. His sensor officers worked quickly. Nothing, Overseer. No energy signatures. No warp trails, no debris. It's as if they abandoned the system. That made no sense. Earth would not run. Not after everything. But before he could question further, the first anomaly struck. The lead destroyer, Virex Spear, suddenly lost all power. Its lights went out. Its weapons froze. Its engines died. Then the ship next to it. Then another. Within minutes, over 50 ships across the fleet went dark, drifting helplessly. Krelvo roared in fury. "Find the source." But there was nothing to find. No missiles, no beams, no enemy ships on scanners. It was as if space itself had turned against them. Then a voice came over every open channel. A calm, human voice speaking in perfect Virex dialect. "You mistook restraint for weakness. We gave you 3 chances to learn the difference." It was General Lisa Monroe. She stood on the bridge of the EFS Resolute, surrounded by her crew. Around her, hidden by the Veil network, over 200 human warships hung in perfect formation. They had been there the whole time, waiting, watching, invisible. Krelvo tried to respond, but his comms fizzled. His weapons refused to charge. Even his life support flickered. He looked out the viewport and saw nothing but stars. Then slowly lights began to appear, tiny points of blue-white glow forming a perfect sphere around his fleet. Human ships uncloaking one by one until the Virex were completely surrounded. Monroe's voice returned. "You came to burn our home. Instead, you will learn what happens when courtesy ends." What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Human drones, no larger than shuttles, darted between the Virex ships. They did not fire. They did not explode. They simply attached to key systems, power cores, weapon mounts, navigation hubs, and delivered precise energy pulses that disabled everything without causing damage. Within an hour, the entire Virex Grand Fleet was powerless, floating in a silent cage of human vessels. On Earth, people watched the live feed in stunned silence. News channels broadcast the scene from orbit. Hundreds of alien warships motionless, surrounded by sleek human ships that moved with quiet confidence. Children pointed at the screens. Elders wept. No one cheered. This was not victory through violence. It was victory through control. President Carter stood in the command center beneath Geneva watching the same feed. He turned to Dr. Owen Hayes, who had flown in just hours before. "Did it work?" he asked. Hayes nodded. Every system performed beyond expectations. The veil held. The counterpulse was clean. Not a single Virex life was lost. "Good," Carter said. "Because mercy is not weakness. It's choice." Back in space, Captain Maya Ruiz piloted the Resolute close to the Iron Maw. She opened a direct channel to Krelvo's bridge. His image appeared on her screen, angry, humiliated but alive. "You could have killed us," he said, his voice low. "We could have," Ruiz replied. "But we don't kill unless we must. You attacked civilians. You ignored warnings. You thought we were soft. Now you know better." She paused, then added, "Go home, Overseer. Tell your people what happened here. Tell them Earth is not a target. We are a boundary." Then she cut the channel. The human fleet held position for 1 more hour, ensuring the Virex systems remained offline. Then just as quietly as they had appeared, they vanished, re-engaging the Veil network and disappearing into the void. The Virex fleet drifted for 2 days before their backup systems slowly rebooted. By then, the humans were long gone. Krelvo sat alone in his darkened command chair, staring at the empty space where the Resolute had been. For the first time in his life, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. On Earth, life returned to normal almost immediately. Schools reopened. Trains ran on schedule. Farmers tended their fields. But something had changed in the air. People walked taller. Voices were steadier. There was no gloating, no hatred, just quiet pride. They had shown the galaxy who they were, not with rage, but with discipline, skill, and restraint. In the days that followed, messages poured in from across the stars. The Cathari asked to train with human pilots. The Lumini sent a light sculpture honoring Earth's engineers. Even former Virex allies reached out, seeking new trade agreements. The galaxy was learning a new truth. Humanity's strength was not in how hard they could hit, but in how wisely they chose not to. And as the stars turned above a peaceful Earth, the message was clear. Courtesy had not disappeared. It had simply earned its respect. The Virex hegemony did not survive the year, not because Earth destroyed it, but because its own people turned away. After the Grand Fleet returned, humiliated, powerless yet unharmed, whispers became shouts. Minor species within the hegemony, long tired of Virex cruelty and arrogance, saw what happened near Sol and realized they did not have to live in fear anymore. One by one, they broke away. First the Koran mining clans, then the Sylph trade guilds, then even the warrior caste of the Drex. Within months, the mighty hegemony was a shadow, its borders shrinking, its influence gone. Earth did not gloat. It did not send troops to occupy or punish. Instead, it opened its doors. Refugee ships from former Virex worlds arrived at human ports, unsure of what to expect. They found medical aid, food, and clean water waiting. They found engineers helping them repair their ships. They found children offering them fruit from Earth's orchards. The galaxy watched in awe. Humanity had won without conquest, and now it healed without condition. In Geneva, President Daniel Carter stood before the newly reformed Galactic Concord. The chamber was fuller than ever. Delegates from over 200 species, many of whom had never set foot on Earth before. Carter wore a simple suit, no medals, no grand robes. He spoke plainly as he always did. "We never wanted to be feared," he said, "but we refused to be prey. For too long we believed that being kind meant never showing strength. We were wrong. Kindness is not the absence of power. It is the choice to use power wisely. Today we ask the conquered to recognize that truth." The assembly was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, species rose in agreement. The Cathari slammed their fists on the table in approval. The Lumine pulsed a soft golden light. Even the Tsar, ever skeptical, gave a slow, respectful nod. By the end of the session, the human clause was added to the Concord Charter, a new standard that honored ethical restraint not as weakness, but as a mark of advanced civilization. Back on Earth, life continued as it always had. Markets bustled. Trains ran on time. Children played in parks under open skies. But now those parks sometimes held visitors, tall, feathered diplomats from the Luminae, armored Cathari warriors learning to kick a soccer ball, even a few former Virex citizens now free, walking slowly through city streets, eyes wide at the sight of strangers smiling at them. Captain Maya Ruiz was promoted to fleet commander. She accepted the honor quietly, then returned to her ship. She had no interest in medals or titles. She only cared that her crew and the people they protected were safe. Dr. Owen Hayes received the Stellar Merit Award, the highest scientific honor in human space. He gave the prize money to a school on Mars for orphaned colonists. Ambassador Lena Ford brokered a dozen new alliances in the months that followed, each built not on fear or profit, but on mutual trust. One evening, as Earth turned toward night, a group of alien diplomats toured a small town in Oregon. They walked past houses with open windows, heard laughter from backyards, saw neighbors sharing tools over fences. One of them, a Cathari elder named Vor, turned to his human guide and asked, "Why do your people still do these things? After everything you've been through, why are you still kind?" The guide, a retired teacher named Helen Briggs, sister to medic Carla Briggs of New Haven, smiled. "Because it's who we are," she said. "Not because the galaxy deserves it, but because we choose it." That simple answer spread through the diplomatic circles like a quiet wave. Species that had once seen human behavior as strange or foolish now saw it as something rare and strong. They began to understand humanity's courtesy was never a sign of fear. It was a promise that even in the face of violence they would hold on to their humanity. And when that promise was broken by others, they would respond not with cruelty, but with clarity. Years later, historians would call this era the Turning, not because of battles or treaties, but because the galaxy's view of strength had changed forever. Before Earth's last warning, power meant destruction. After it, power meant control. Power meant choice. Power meant walking away from revenge because something better was possible. On a quiet hill outside Geneva, a new monument was built, not to war, but to warning. It was a simple stone arch with the words carved in every known language: "Stop attacking or we stop acting courteous." Visitors came from across the stars to see it. Some wept, some stood in silence. All left with a new understanding. And still on Earth, people held doors open for strangers. They said please and thank you. They helped neighbors carry groceries. They taught their children to share, to listen, to care. The galaxy finally saw the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its ships or its tech or its courage in battle. It was its everyday decency, the quiet, steady force that built cities, healed wounds, and when necessary, drew lines the universe dared not cross. The Virex were gone. Peace was not perfect, but for the first time in a long time it was real. And it was earned not by shouting but by standing firm. Not by cruelty but by choice. Earth had given its last warning. And in doing so, it gave the galaxy a new standard to live by.